All right, let's talk about something I think we can all relate to. It's that habit, that trap, really, we've all fallen into, usually without even noticing. I'm talking about that endless, anxious scroll through bad news that just leaves you feeling completely drained. Today, we're going to break down exactly what doom scrolling is, see what it's really doing to our brains, and, most importantly, talk about how to get back in the driver's seat.
I mean, does that hit a little too close to home? We've all been there, right? You tell yourself you're just going to check the headlines for a minute, and then somehow it's 3 hours later and you've gone down a rabbit hole of every single crisis happening in the world. You know you should stop, but you just can't.
And there you have it. That's the official definition. But the key word here is purposefully. This isn't just mindless flipping, it's the act of actively hunting for negative stories. The term really took off during the pandemic, for obvious reasons, but the habit itself has definitely stuck around.
So the big question is, why is it so hard to just put the phone down? Well, the very first thing you need to understand is that this is not a failure of willpower. Not at all. This is a matter of neuroscience. Your brain is quite literally being hijacked.
What's so wild about this is the massive disconnect between what we think we're doing and what's actually happening under the hood. We tell ourselves, oh, I'm just unwinding, or I'm staying informed. But on a biological level, your body is kicking into its fight or flight response, your ancient brain is scanning for threats, and you're getting caught in a dopamine loop that just keeps you wanting more.
And I really want to land on this point. Let's just de-shame this whole thing right now. This is not a personal failing. You are not weak or lazy because you can't stop scrolling. You're in a tug of war against incredibly sophisticated platforms that are designed from the ground up to capture and hold your attention. So let's look at the brain's recipe for this addiction. It's kind of three main ingredients. First, you've got the dopamine loop. Every swipe that gives you a new, juicy, emotionally charged story is a tiny little reward that tells your brain, do that again. Then, you've got our natural negativity bias. We are hardwired to pay more attention to threats than to good news. It's an old survival mechanism. And finally, all this bad news keeps our nervous system in a constant, low-grade state of alert.
And get this, think about it from an evolutionary standpoint. Our ancestors might have gotten a few big dopamine hits a day, right? Finding food, seeing a friend. Now, we can get around 500 of these little dopamine spikes every single day, just from swiping on our phones. Our brains were just not built for that kind of stimulation. It's a total overload.
And this quote, wow, it just says it all, doesn't it? When our brain gets so used to getting its pleasure and reward from the high-speed, high-intensity world of the phone, real-world things like reading a book or going for a walk or having a real conversation, they can start to feel, well, kind of dull in comparison.
Okay, so we've seen how our brains get hijacked. But where does all of this lead? Well, this whole cycle isn't happening in a vacuum. It has very real and sometimes pretty damaging consequences for our mental and our physical health.
You ever finish a long scrolling session and just feel weird, kind of agitated or numb, or just emotionally scrambled? Well, some researchers have a great name for that, an emotional hangover. Think about it. You've just scrolled through videos designed to make you laugh, cry, get angry, and feel jealous, all in the span of 5 minutes. Your brain just can't handle that kind of emotional whiplash.
And the research here is really sobering. While doom scrolling might not directly cause these conditions, study after study shows it can seriously worsen the symptoms for people who are already struggling. It just feeds this vicious cycle of anxiety and compulsion.
And if you boil it down, these are really the big three consequences that pop up in the research over and over again. The more time people spend consuming negative news in short-form video, the worse their sleep quality gets, the higher their anxiety levels are, and the harder it becomes for them to focus on anything else.
You've probably heard these slang terms floating around, popcorn brain or brain rot. And yeah, they sound kind of funny, but they're describing a very real feeling. Our brains get so accustomed to the rapid-fire, constant stimulation online that the slower, more deliberate pace of the real world can actually start to feel boring or even difficult to deal with.
And hey, this isn't all in your head. The constant stress response from doom scrolling can show up as very real physical symptoms. We're talking tension headaches, tight shoulders, stomach problems, even elevated blood pressure. And of course, that blue light from our screens messes with melatonin, the hormone we need to get good sleep.
Okay, that was a lot of the bad news. But here is the good news, and it's really good news. We are not powerless here, at all. There are concrete, totally doable steps we can take to break this cycle and get our attention back. So let's get into the solutions. Now, this is so important to remember. The goal is not to throw your phone in a lake and go live in a cabin, unless you want to. For most of us, it's about being strategic. It's about creating intentional boundaries that give your brain and your body the space they need to recover and reset.
So strategy number 1 is all about creating what we call digital friction. Basically, you make the mindless habit just a little bit harder to do. Turning your screen to grayscale, for example, it's a game changer. It takes away all those bright, colorful icons that your brain finds so rewarding. It instantly makes your phone less of a shiny toy. And turning off notifications or moving apps into a folder, it all does the same thing. It forces you to pause and make a conscious choice, breaking that mindless loop.
Okay, strategy 2 is for when you're already caught in that scrolling trance. You have to interrupt the loop. The 5-minute pause is amazing for this. You just catch yourself, set a timer for 5 minutes, and put the phone down. Often the urge to scroll is gone by the time the timer goes off. Or just get up and move. A few stretches can physically reset your body's stress response. And calling a friend, a real human connection, is an incredibly powerful antidote to the algorithm.
And finally, our third strategy is about flipping the script, shifting from being a passive consumer to an active, intentional user. Set a timer before you start scrolling and actually stick to it. Go through your feed and unfollow accounts that make you feel anxious or angry, and actively follow ones that are calming or positive. And how you start and end your day is just critical. Try to win the morning without your phone and give it a bedtime at night, putting it away at least an hour before you plan to sleep.
Because at the end of the day, your time, your focus, and your peace of mind, they're your most valuable resources, and they really deserve to be protected. So, after looking at all of this, the final question is really for you. What is one small, manageable thing you're going to do today to protect your peace and start reclaiming your brain?